Hello, everybody. It is Chloethedev here. Should be live already. So today I went live, or we drove back from Windsor. Gosh, long drive, Thanksgiving weekend, so we had a lot of fun. Then I got home, went live doing the Viper.fun tutorial for chapter 2. It was super fun, super enjoyable, learned a lot, and solidified a lot of my previous understanding of like blockchain programming in general, or programming in general. So it was really good. Took me like 3.5 hours, a lot longer than I thought it would take me. The first lesson last week took me an hour and a half, so reasonable that the harder lesson would take me more time. And then I went live just now on the Marmaget Foundation channel in CryptoVoxels, went a little bit in Decentraland, had a little fun. And now gonna a little 10-page paper, the Casper paper from Vitalik and Virgil Griffith from the Ethereum Foundation. So we're just gonna get into it. It's only 10 pages. I'm gonna basically read through it relatively quickly. And then basically for myself, whenever I have notes or points that, if I have any, I'm just going to probably stop and talk about them. This is mostly for me, so that I can have a record of what papers I've gone through and what I've been doing, and at the same time, I think that maybe there's someone out there that wants to read this paper or can't for accessibility reasons, like potentially. This paper is very simple and straightforward, but potentially having an extra walkthrough of it couldn't hurt. So let's get started. Abstract. We introduced Casper, a proof-of-stake-based finality system which overlays an existing proof-of-work blockchain. Casper is a partial consensus mechanism combining proof-of-stake algorithm research and Byzantine fault-tolerant consensus theory. We introduce our system, prove some desirable features, and show defenses against long-range revisions and catastrophic crashes. The Casper overlay provides almost any proof-of-work chain with additional protections against block revisions. Look, Axie Infinity Daily Quest Reset. Anyways, all that's saying is Casper is not its own full consensus algorithm. It's an overlay that will go on top of existing proof-of-work blockchain. Okay, so introduction. Over the past few years, there has been considerable research into proof-of-stake-based blockchain consensus algorithms. In a POS system, a blockchain appends and agrees on new blocks through a process where anyone who holds coins inside of the system can participate. And the influence an agent has is proportional to the number of coins or stake it holds. This is a vastly more efficient alternative to proofs of work or POW mining, and enables blockchains to operate without mining's high hardware and electricity costs. One of the main benefits of moving from proof of stake to proof of work, proof of stake, as a consensus algorithm, is that instead of having all these computers doing all this computational work and spending all this energy to get reward and secure a blockchain, you could just have the fact that you already have these tokens and they're in a network be what helps provide security for a blockchain. There are two major schools of thought in POS design. The first, chain-based POS, mimics proof-of-work mechanics and features a chain of blocks and simulates mining by pseudo-randomly assigning the right to create new blocks to stakeholders. All pseudo-random means is that it's randomness that after a certain amount of time or a certain amount of data is revealed is no longer random. So basically, like if you use block time or whatever, and then the hash power to compute a random number, once that block is hit, that number is no longer random. So that's all they're meaning by a pseudo-random number here. This includes Peercoin, Blackcoin, and Ito Bentov's work. The other school, Byzantine fault-based proof of stake, is based on a 30-year-old body of research into BFT consensus algorithms as PBFT. BFT algorithms typically have proven mathematical properties. For example, one can usually mathematically prove as long as greater than two-thirds of protocol participants are following the protocol honestly, then regardless of network latency, the algorithm cannot finalize conflicting blocks. So basically, you know what I mean? Wait. Conflicting blocks. Yeah, so you're good to go as long as you have greater than two-thirds of the protocol participants acting honestly. Repurposing BFT algorithms for proof of stake was first introduced by Tendermint and has modern inspirations such as 8. That's really, I wish I could just have the paper open on two different tabs so I can know what that means. I'll go look at it later. Casper follows this BFT tradition, although with some modification. So it doesn't really matter too much. Just know that there's some previous implementations started by Tendermint, and Casper kind of follows the main tradition, but it has some interesting modifications, which I'm sure we're going to hear about. Artwork. Casper the Friendly Finality Gadget is an overlay atop a proposal mechanism, a mechanism which proposes blocks. Casper is responsible for finalizing these blocks, essentially selecting a unique chain which represents the canonical transactions of the ledger. Casper provides safety, but liveliness depends on the chosen proposal mechanisms. The whole idea is Casper is an overlay which gives you finality and safety in that finality, but what it's saying here is that liveliness of your blockchain, it doesn't really pertain to Casper at all. You can use whatever consensus mechanism you want, I guess, is the underlay, and Casper should be able to go on top. That is, if attackers wholly control the proposal mechanism, Casper protects against finalizing two conflicting checkpoints. But the attackers could prevent Casper from finalizing any future checkpoint. So if the attacker was powerful enough, they got a lot of control. Casper introduces several new features that BFT algorithms do not necessarily support. Accountability. So if a validator violates a rule, we can detect the violation and know which validator violated the rule. Very important to be able to go back and know, like if someone had an offense, how do you know who to slash? Slashing just means like removing a part of someone, a validator stake. Accountability allows us to penalize malfeasant validators. Following the nothing at stake problem that plagues chain-based POS, the penalty for violating a rule is a validator's entire deposit. This maximum penalty is the defense against violating the protocol, because proof of stake security is based on the size of the penalty, which can be set to greatly exceed the gains from the mining reward. Proof of stake provides strictly stronger security intended to proof of work. Now, I agree with this because you have an algorithm or consensus algorithm anyways, and you just say, okay, as long as we follow these rules, everyone's economic stability is set. If you break some rules, here is a list of rules you're not allowed to break. Here is the penalization. That's how the world works today. You have laws you have to follow in to be part of society. If you break the laws, you get penalized. You have a life to live, and you could lose parts of that life, and you can't get it back. Same with this, POS. I think a lot of it's human nature. You have a set of rules you must follow. If you don't follow them, then you will get penalized. That makes sense. Dynamic validators. We introduce a safe way for validators set to change over time. Very important. You don't want to have the same validators being chosen, because if you use the same validators, it could be easier for an attacker to figure out which validators are going to be chosen, and therefore, try and either be part of those validators or a bunch of other things. Defenses, we try and introduce defense against long-range revision attacks, as well as attacks where more than 1/3 of validators drop offline, at the cost of a very weak trade-off synchronity assumption, section 4. Modular overlay. Casper design as an overlay makes it easier to implement as an upgrade to the existing proof of work chain. This whole idea is basically that, as an overlay, you can use it modularly wherever you like. It's really cool. We describe Casper in stages, showing a very simple version in section 2, and then you add validator set changes in section 3, and finally defenses against attacks in section 4. So let's get to the very basics of what Casper protocol is. Okay. Within Ethereum, the proposal mechanism will initially be the existing proof of work chain, making the first version of Casper a hybrid POW-POS system. In the future versions, the POW mechanism will be replaced with something more efficient. For example, we can imagine converting the block proposal into some kind of POS round-robin block signing scheme. In this simple version of Casper, we assume there is a fixed set of validators and a proposal mechanism, for example, the familiar proof of work proposal mechanism, which produces child blocks of existing blocks, forming an ever-growing block tree. From the root tree is typically called the genesis block. Okay. Under normal circumstances, we expect that the proposal mechanism will typically propose blocks one after the other in a linked list. So you have a block, and you have, canonically, you have a new block coming out over time. You link them all together, or you can't, revert things changed from the previous block. Simple blockchain stuff. For example, the parent block have exactly only one child block. But in the case of network latency or deliberate attacks, the proposal mechanism will inevitably occasionally produce multiple children of the same parent. I think that's what uncle blocks in Ethereum. When you have they don't actually use for the state, but use things in the main state. Casper's job is to, when that kind of stuff happens, to choose a single child chain from each parent, thus choosing one canonical chain from the block tree. So liveliness and what happens isn't chosen by Casper. Casper has finality. It lets you know which block is final. Rather than deal with the full block tree for efficiency purposes, Casper only considers the subtree of checkpoints forming the checkpoint tree, figure 1A. So we're going to get, we'll go down there later. Oh, tired. The Genesis block is a checkpoint, and every block whose height in the block tree or block number is an exact multiple of 100 is also a checkpoint. So you have like different epochs or checkpoint. The checkpoint height of a block with block height 100 times k is simply k. Equivocally, the height hc of a checkpoint c is the number of elements in the checkpoint chain stretching from c, non-inclusive, to the route along the parent links. This is telling you how to figure out how many checkpoints you have in a chain for a certain height of 100. Very basic math, just so you know what's going on in the chain. Each validator has a deposit. When a validator joins, deposit is the number of deposited coins. So in ETH 2.0, you have 32 coins for a deposit. So your deposit for your validator is 32 ETH. After joining, each validator's deposit rises and falls with rewards and penalties. So for example, when I started my node for the Madata testnet, I started with 32 ETH, and then almost everyone got slashed in the first few days. So I ended up with like 30, 31 ETH, and I actually didn't get any reward because I had to turn my laptop. I was running on my laptop, so I had to go travel somewhere, and I got turned off. But the idea is, as you get slashed, you'll go down in ETH, and as you get rewards, you go up in ETH. And the whole idea is get more rewards when you get slashed and increase your economic, your voting power, increase your stake in the network. Here we go. Proof of stake security derives from the size of the deposits, not the number of validators. So for the rest of this paper, when we say 2/3 of validators, we're referring to the deposit weighted fraction. So we're talking about 2/3 of all validators, not people who are validated. That is, the set of validators who sum up the deposits equals 2/3 of the deposit size of the entire set of validators, regardless of how many validators that is, in relation to the number of total validators validating human beings. Validators can broadcast a vote message containing 4 pieces of information, table 1. 2 checkpoints, S and T, together with their heights, the height of S and the height of T. We require that S be an ancestor of T in the checkpoint tree. So basically, you can't divide inappropriately. You need to make sure you're doing things properly. With S being the ancestor and T being checkpoint. So you could even use ancestor and A and C, but you already use C above, so you have to use S and T. Otherwise, the vote is considered invalid. If the public key of the validator V is not in the validator set, the vote is considered invalid. So obviously you need to be in a validator set to be a validator. Together with the signature of the validator, we write these votes in the form of the validator from S to T at the height of S and the height of T. Simple enough. S is the hash of any justified checkpoint, the source. This is where you're starting from. So this is where you know your justified checkpoint. T is the checkpoint hash that is the descendant of S, the target. So this is the next checkpoint, or some sort of checkpoint. Then you want the height of H to the height of S. So you want the difference between this and this, I suppose. So because you need to. So what is this? What is this? What is the height of this? What is the height of this? And then it doesn't even say S here. S is the hash. Where's the big S? Where's my big signature? Why aren't you showing me the signature in this equation if you put it right here? Am I missing something? The schematic of a single vote message denoting the validator, the source, the checkpoint, the height of the source, the height of the checkpoint, and it doesn't seem like we even use. Maybe this is just used to show that this is all of this signed from the validator. Okay, cool. So this is the 1A we're looking at. This is the checkpoint tree. The dashed line represents 99 blocks between checkpoints, which are represented by, so these are 99 blocks between checkpoints, I guess, which are represented by rounded rectangles. So these are the checkpoints. the root of the tree is R. So this is the root. Then you have this block. Then you had this like uncle like chain, I guess. But Casper decided instead of these three things, this had some work on it. This had no work on it, but we're going to go this way because this is the longest. This is the longest chain right here. So sorry, these three. This is the longest chain either way. So we're going here, and then you have this direction and this direction, but this is the longest chain with the most work. It won out. So then you're at block 3, and then again it would just continue. So yeah, this is just showing how you're going through the paper. So yeah, a supermajority link is an ordered pair of the checkpoints A, B, also written A towards B, such that at least 2/3 of the validators by deposit have published votes with source A at the target B. So we're going A to target B. I'm guessing that's just going here to target B. But source, okay, so this is the S. So this is the S and this is the T. So from, let's say, this could be one height, this could be the next height, or this could be the next height. This could be a source, this could be T, this could be source, this could be T, different block heights. This is 100 blocks between each, I guess. 2 checkpoints A and B are called conflicting if and only if they are nodes in distinct branches. So if you have a node here and a node here, distinct separate branches, then that's not going to work. They're conflicting. That doesn't work. Checkpoint C is called justified if 1, it is the root. So there you go. That's always justified. Or there exists a supermajority link, C prime or T chime to C, where the checkpoint C prime is justified. So we're going from like here to here, where this is justified, going to here. Sorry, you guys can't see. I'm trying to highlight. So like here to here. It's hard to, I'm saying here in my own brain so I understand what's going on, but I suppose it's not really easy to see. I need a way to put a mouse, a cursor on my screen so I can actually look back and know what's going on. Anyways, a checkpoint C is called finalized now. So you have justified and then finalized. So essentially justified goes finalized if it is either the root. So again, if it's the root, it's justified and finalized. Or it is justified, right? So it's already been justified, and there is a super majority link C to C prime, where C prime is a direct child of C. So if you have a link from here to here, where this is a direct child, right? That's what we're saying. Where C prime is a direct child of C. Equivocally, checkpoint C is finalized if and only if checkpoint C is justified. There exists a supermajority link of, sorry, I'm trying to, reading here, of C to C prime. Checkpoint C and C prime are not conflicting, and height of C prime equals C plus 1. So you're basically saying that, you know, this has to equal this plus 1, so it has to be here, 1 layer up. Actually, sorry, this is the height of 2. My bad. Sorry, this is the height of 1. This is the height of 3. This is the height of 6. That's what I meant to say. So 0, 1, I can't really show it because of my mouse, 2, and then 3. So this is the, sorry, I can't even like copy this little 3 space on the right hand side of empty squares. That's where it would be. Okay. Individual validator V must not publish 2 sync votes. You get slashed. So if you are a validator and you publish a vote saying that from block height 1 to this different block height, then the height of that, and you sign saying this is the correct block. So that's like saying that, you know, this is the correct block and the one to the left of it is correct, right? This and the one to the left. Then you're going to get slashed. And then you're just going through such that h of t equals, or equivocally a validator must not vote within the span of its other votes. So HS1 is less than HS2, less than HT2, less than HT1. You must not vote within the span of your other votes. Figure 2, the Casper commandments. Okay, so this is the Casper commandments. Any validator who violates either of these commandments gets the deposit slash. So there we go, right there. If you do these two things, you get slashed. So if you vote for something and you vote for something else in the same epoch, or if you vote twice, no, can't do that. And then if you publish two different votes saying that two things are true, you can't do that, which makes sense because truth is only one thing. There's one set of truth on the blockchain or on Ethereum. The most notable property of Casper is that it is impossible for any two conflicting checkpoints to be finalized unless greater than or equal to 1/3 of the validators violate one of the two Casper commandments / conditions. If a validator violates each / condition, the evidence of the violation can be included into the blockchain as a transaction, at which point the validator's entire deposit is taken away, oh gosh, with a small finder's fee given the standard of the. So this is cool because everyone's going to be looking for this finder fee. And that's kind of how people are economically incentivized to try and get that money. So they're going to be looking to figure out, make sure no one's doing anything slashable. It also secures the network. So in the current Ethereum, stopping enforcement of a slashing condition requires a successful 51% attack on Ethereum proof of work proposal. So right now, if you want to attack Ethereum, you need 51% of the network. In this, it seems like all you really need to do is to create some issues with Finality and attack 2/3 of the network, but you won't be able to attack liveliness, from what I understand. Providing safety and plausible liveliness. We prove Casper's two fundamental properties, accountable safety and plausible liveliness. Accountable safety means that two checkpoints cannot both be finalized unless greater or equal to 1/3 of the validators violate a slashing condition, meaning it's 1/3 of the total value was lost. Yeah, so all those people that were attacking would lose their entire deposit, which would be very economically painful for anyone attacking. Let's see. If greater than follow the protocol, then it's always possible to finalize a checkpoint with only validating such condition with such that the greater than 1/3 of the validators weight by weight violate such condition. We have the following properties. So if greater than 1/3 of the validators are violating the slashing conditions, are distinct. So if S1 and T1 and S2 and T2 are distinct supermajority links, then the height of T1 does not equal the height of T2. So we're not going to assume that they're equal. And then if S1 towards T2, T1 and S2 are distinct, okay, then the inequality of this cannot hold. Yeah, which makes sense because, yeah. From these two properties, we can immediately see that for any height n, there exists at most one supermajority link for S towards T with the height of T equaling that height, right, that we talked about. There exists at most one justified checkpoint with the height n. So there should be no other checkpoint that's been justified, kind of going up here. There should be no other checkpoint that reaches this height, right? So only one checkpoint that ends up continuing to reach that height. With these four properties in hand, we move to the main theorems. I'll read through the theorems very quickly. I am not going to stop and go through them, but they are fun to read through, in my opinion, just to get the idea of what we actually have to prove this. So theorem number 1, accountable safety. Two conflicting checkpoints, AM and BN, cannot be finalized. So proof. Let AM would justify direct child AM plus 1, meaning the height of AM plus 1 equals A M plus 1. And, sorry, I need to drink something. And BN would justify direct child, okay, exact same thing. So let them be distinct finalized checkpoints, as in figure 3. Okay, so this is the distinct finalized checkpoint. This is the distinct finalized checkpoint. But you look here, and you look here, and nothing's here. So you're violating a certain theorem. Sorry. My throat's really hurting. And without loss of generality, HA1 is less than B. Okay. So if you haven't done this, but you do have this, it's clear that 1/3 of the value is valid condition of this first one, right here. Okay. We know that there's no height for. Wait, I missed something here. Earlier versions of Casper had 2 types of messages and 4 slashing conditions, but we had to reduce this to 1 message type and 2 slashing conditions. Remove the conditions. Committed hashes must already be justified. And 2, prepare messages must point to an already justified ancestor. This is a design choice. We made the choice so that slashing violations are independent of the state of the chain. I like that. Keep things simple. We know that no height of BI equals either height of AM or AM plus 1 because that violates the property. Let J be the lowest integer such that the height of B of J, that lowest integer, is greater than the height of AM plus 1. Then, so we're kind of looking here. Like this is going to be greater than this. Okay. So where are we? Let J be the lowest integer. Okay, 1. This implies the existence of a supermodal link from a checkpoint with an epoch number less than h of a of m. So let's say h of a of 3 to a checkpoint with an epoch number greater, right? So this suggests there's a link from here to here, right? From a of m to a of m plus 1. Which is incompatible with the supermajority link from A of M to A of M plus 1. Wait, there's a bias link from a checkpoint with an epoch number less. Okay, so they're saying you have a link here that is the same as this. Man, you're gonna have to. Anyways, I'm not even sure what they're talking about, honestly. But I know this is showing violation. Like, this is a figure for theorem 1, showing that this is safe because you're going up, and this is longer than this. Let's see. Plausible liveliness. Let's see. Supermajority links can always be added to produce new finalized checkpoints, provided there exist children extending the finalized chain. So this is kind of saying, in my opinion, that if you can add a link like here, so for block 3 to block 4, this can be added to produce new checkpoints. So this is a new checkpoint of block 4, provided there exist children extending the finalized chain. So as long as there's so you have a child here and you have a child to the left of it, as long as one of those exists, you can add a link. So proof. So we're just proving that. Proof. Let A be the justified checkpoint with the greatest height, and B be the target checkpoint with the greatest height. So I guess this would be A, and this would be B. So B3 would be A, B4 would be B, I think. Any checkpoint A prime, which is a descendant of A, okay, with a height of A prime equals the height of B, which is good, plus 1. So anything that's over here, I can't even, but like, let's say you went from here to here and extended to here, I think that's what it's saying, can be justified without violating either 1 or 2. That makes sense. So if you go from here to any other chain that would be in this area, it can be added without violating the previous rules we had. Makes sense. And then A prime, I'm just calling it A prime. Any checkpoint A prime with the descendant of A with the weight of A prime equals. So this one can be finalized by adding a supermajority link from A prime to a direct child of A. So here, 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 here. These are all direct children of A, or I guess also here, direct children of A. Anyways, also without violating either one or two. Okay, that makes sense. Sorry, it took a little while for me to go through. Would have helped if I had like two of them. Anyways, 2.2, Casper's fork choice rule. Casper is more complicated than standard POW design, so as such, the fork choice must be adjusted. Our modified fork choice rule will be followed by all users, validators, and even the underlying block proposal mechanism. If the users, validators, or block producers instead follow the standard POW fork choice rule of always build on the longest chain, there are pathological scenarios where Casper gets stuck and any blocks built atop the longest chain cannot be finalized or even justified without some validators altruistically sacrificing the deposits. That's not good. To avoid this, we use a novel correct by construction fork choice rule. Follow the chain containing the justified checkpoint of the greatest height. This fork choice rule is correct by construction because it follows the plausible liveness proof theorem number 2. Which precisely states that it's always possible to finalize new checkpoint on top of the justified checkpoint with the greatest height. So that's kind of saying if you come to this, you can always finalize because you can finalize here, you can finalize here, you can finalize, at the root. It doesn't matter. You can always finalize as long as it's the longest one. This fortress rule will be tweaked in sessions 3 and 4. Okay, so now we have this simple idea. Now we're going to go to 3, and we're going to have a dynamic validator set. The set of validators needs to be able to change. New validators must be able to join, and existing validators must be able to leave. So this is the entire validator set, I guess, saying that I guess it would be hard to leave the network currently, but eventually you'd have to be able to leave your stake and not validate anymore. But in my opinion, more importantly, like for example, if you have a trusted setup in a zero knowledge proof, part of the issue is that if someone else wants to come into that setup, they can't join in. So part of this is if you had a kind of trusted setup where you had a static validator set, the issue, in my opinion, would be that, if I didn't start validating on day 1, I can't come validate later, which is kind of the biggest issue. The dynasty of block B is the number of finalized checkpoints in the chain from root to parent of block B. When a would-be validator's deposit message is included in a block with dynasty D, then the validator V will join the validator set at the first block with dynasty D plus 2. We call D plus 2 this validator's start dynasty. So dynasty start for that validator. To leave the validator set, the validator must send a withdraw message. Validator's V withdraw message is included in the block with dynasty D. It similarly leaves the validator set at the first block with dynasty D plus 2. We call D plus 2 the validator's end dynasty, dynasty end for the validator. If a withdraw message has not been included, then the dynasty end for that validator equals infinity. So if you don't want to withdraw, go forever. That's going to be me, hopefully. We'll see. As long as I'll probably end up changing my validator every few years based on private key security and stuff like that, but we'll see. Once validator V leaves the network set, the validator's public key is forever forbidden from rejoining. So that's kind of my idea. I want to kind of have, this public key is forbidden. So maybe you could just have a same private key and that was my idea, like having pseudo randomness in Ethereum by kind of having a private key where your public key would be burned, let's say once a month and switched over to a different public key. And let's say every year you got a new private key. And then so you'd be able to kind of always have some sort of anonymity within the system simply by continuing to switch your public key. Although I know public keys on Ethereum don't really produce any randomness, but maybe you could take the public key and then add some more. So I know F status kind of uses public keys and then generates random names from that. So if we do a similar thing on Ethereum, it would be cool to have like public, private validation in that type of way. But I don't know if that's even possible. At the start of the N dynasty, the validator's deposit is locked up for a long period of time, called a withdrawal delay. Approximately 4 months worth of blocks before the deposit was withdrawn. If during the withdrawal delay, a validator violates any commandment, the deposit is slashed. This is kind of scary because within those 4 months, maybe you're not watching your private key, maybe you're not being as secure. And if someone gets a hold of your validator or secure control your validator, and they start doing slashable offenses, your reward, your whole deposit could be gone by the time before you even get to withdraw. So this is kind of why I'm also planning on doing a rocket pool node for my marmaja.eth validator. I only need 16 ETH. Also, I'll be able to get N ETH and sell that to kind of mitigate some of the risks of running a validator. We define two functions that generate two subsets of validators for any given dynasty D, the forward validator set and the rear validator set. They're defined as for the validator forward for the dynasty, the validator for dynasty start for the validator is less than or equal to the dynasty and less than the dynasty end for the validator. And the dynasty rear for the dynasty equals the validator for the dynasty set. The validator is less than the dynasty and less than or equal to the dynasty set. Note, this means that the forward validator set of dynasty D is the rear validator set of dynasty D plus 1. So for example, they're showing you just this. And that's kind of changing the plus equal sign here just by adding 1. To support these dynamic validator sets, so basically saying if you add a validator, you're adding 1 if you it's pretty simple. Sorry. To support these sets, we redefined a supermortgage and a finalized checkpoint as follows. An ordered pair of checkpoints S and T, where T is in dynasty D, has a supermajority link if both at least 2/3 of the forward validator set. So now we're talking about the forward validator set of dynasty D have published votes for S towards T, and at least 2 or 3 of the rear validator set of the dynasty have also done the same. Previously, a checkpoint C was called finalized if C is justified, and there's a supermajority link from C to C prime, where C prime is a child of C. We now have the condition that C is finalized. So you're adding in another condition if and only if the votes for the supermajority link for C to C prime, as well as the supermajority link justifying C, are included in C prime's blockchain and before the child of C prime, before the block number of the height of C prime times 100 plus 1. So when we go up here, what we're really saying is that this is justified if you look here and you can find the proof in here. The proof has to be included now in each block. So you need to be able to look at the block previously. So you need to find some sort of block here, that has this proof that this is happening. So you're adding if and only if the votes for the link. So you have to have votes on it now to also choose it. The forward and rear validator sets will usually greatly overlap, but the two validator sets substantially differ. But if they differ, this stitching mechanism prevents safety failure. So this is just just providing extra safety, which is cool, in case a bunch of validators left in the exact same epoch or 100 blocks. In the case of two grandchildren of a finalized checkpoint have different dynasties because the evidence was included in one chain but not the other. For example of this, see figure 4. Okay, I'm gonna get my coconut water from the fridge. I'm tired. Oh, okay, let's finish this up. Quick. Okay, stopping attacks. There are two well-known attacks against proof-of-stake systems: long-range revisions and catastrophic crashes. Okay, so let's discuss them both, I suppose. So oops, what did I just do? Gosh. Now I'm at the beige paper. Now I'm at Casper. Oh, I hit the back button. Sorry. Um, my bad. So, long range revisions. Sorry, I gotta also. There you go. 4.1. The withdrawal delay after a validator's end dynasty introduces a synchronicity assumption between validators and clients. Once a coalition of validators has withdrawn their deposits, if that coalition has more than two-thirds of the deposits long ago in the past, they can use a historical supermajority to finalize conflicting checkpoints without fear of getting slashed because they have already withdrawn their money. This is called the long range revision attack. This is like if two-thirds of validators all got together at like to the beginning of the chain and decided this has been crazy. It's cool. In simple terms, long range attacks are prevented by a fork choice rule to never revert a finalized block. I think that simplifies everything. Once a block is finalized, so in the past in Ethereum, right, you'd want to have like say 2 confirmations, 6 confirmations, 10 confirmations to know the more work that's done, the more chance that there won't be a 51% attack because so much work is being put on top of the chain, it's hard to revert it. But here it's saying you can just never, if once it's finalized, once the epoch is passed, you finalized it. So you justify it, and some blocks go by, and you finalize it. Once it's finalized, you just never change it. So you just never revert it, as well as an expectation that each client will log on and gain a complete up-to-date view of the chain at some regular frequency. So only, even if you only do it once every 1 to 2 months, once per 1 to 2 months, it means that you're getting the state and you won't have these kind of issues. A long-range revision fork that finalizes blocks older than that will simply be ignored because all clients will already seen a finalized block at that height and refuse to revert it. So remember, you can't, if you already finalized something at that height and someone says, oh, look, let's change it to this. You're like, no, we can't change this. And you're trying to, it's very easy to have the computer listen to that. So figure 4 is trying to explain that without the validator set such a mechanism as possible. If you want to, it's very simple. We make an informal proof of the mechanism as follows. Informal proofs are even more fun than formal proofs because I understand them. Suppose that there was a maximum communication delay between 2 clients. What, sigma? Sigma. I like having my Google Chrome because whenever I forget what these symbols are, like the name of them, I always forget the exact name. I just Google it and find the math for it. But it'll play it out for me. So delta, right? But what I like about, I actually have delta on my, yeah, I've got a delta tattoo for D. So again, even though I have delta there, and even though I know it's a Greek D, I still forget that it's delta. That's what Google's for, man. My brain doesn't have to remember all that stuff. Yeah, it says doulos in Aramaic. There's a maximum communication of delay, delta. So yeah, D, delay, delta. Between 2 clients. So if one client hears the message at time T, all clients are guaranteed to have heard it by time T plus this delay time, delta. This means that we can talk about the time window, T min to T max, during which a block was received by the network with T max minus T min at most the delay. So, this is your time max minus time min that would give you your delay. We assume that all clients have local clocks that are perfectly synchronized. Any discrepancy can be treated as part of the communications delay. Blocks are required to have timestamps. If a client has a local time, so time locally, then it will reject blocks whose timestamps, so time for the certain block, so the block is greater than the local time. So now basically the whole idea is if you know when the block time came out and you know what your time is, and if this block is too far from the current time, then it's going to be an issue. You're not going to sign that. They will refuse to accept as finalized, but still accept as part of the chain. Blocks where the time of the block is less than your block minus the delay, so it's too far in the past. It's basically saying you can add to the blockchain, do whatever you want, but I'm not going to accept it as finalized because it's too far in the past. In the future, it will reject blocks whose are too. So basically, if it's too far in the future or too far in the past, here you're going to reject them. If validator sees a slashing violation at time t, that's the time they hear that the later of the two votes required for the slashing violation. Then they reject block with timestamps greater than the time plus 2 times the delay that are part of chains that have not yet included this slashing evidence. Then we're going to go to, that's why reading papers is the best way to understand things because they have an introduction. Then they lay out how it works. Then they go through increasing difficulty. Then they go through diagrams and examples. I love it though. Suppose that a large set of slashing violations results in 2 conflicting finalized checkpoints, C1 and C2. If 2 time windows do not intersect, then all validators agree which checkpoint came first, and everyone follows the rule to not revert the finalized checkpoint. No issues. So you have C1 and C2, and they are conflicting. Just pick the soonest one, and you're good to go. If the time windows do intersect at the exact same time, then we can handle the case as follows. Let C1's time window be 0 delta, and let C2's time window be delta minus E, 2 delta minus E. Then the timestamps of both are at least 0. That makes sense, right? By the time 2 delta is guaranteed that by the time of 2 delta, so double the distance, it is guaranteed that all clients have seen the slashing violation. Okay. So the idea is if they are given at the exact same time, just wait a little bit of time. We all have seen the issue. So reject the block. So reject blocks with timestamp greater than 4 delta whose chains have not been included the evidence transaction. So if we have them at the exact same time, wait a certain amount of time till all the clients have realistically seen who the culprit is and who the right chain is. And basically, if whatever chain doesn't have that proof saying that this is correct, remember we have that thing where we can go check who did the wrong thing, who gets slashed, and then pick the one at that point who has the correct stuff. So hence, as long as W is greater than 4 delta, it is guaranteed that malfeasant validators will lose their deposits in all chains that any client accepts where W is the withdraw delay. So as long as you have a withdraw delay long enough, then even if you're doing shady stuff, within those 4 months, you will lose your entire stake if you ended up doing some of this shady stuff over here. Due to network delays, it's possible that clients will disagree whether a given piece of slash evidence was submitted into a given chain on time or as having accepted it too late. However, this is only a liveliness failure, not a safety failure. And this possibility does not weaken our security claims because it is already known that a corrupted proposal mechanism, which will be required to prevent evidence inclusion, can prevent finality. So, I mean, yeah, like if your underlay is messed up and your overlay, like you can't secure the overlay perfectly, but the overlay will still should help having security in finality, like knowing when something's final and when something's not. So if you can't finalize something, then Casper is doing its job saying, hey, we can't finalize this because the rules aren't being set. The idea is to always be able to have that kind of finality, though. But I know, like for Ethereum blockchain in the Medalla testnet, there was a time when you had liveliness still, but no finality. And that caused a lot of deposits to get slashed and stuff like that. Figure 5, the long-range attack. As long as the client gains complete knowledge of the justified chain. So a justified chain, remember, is just one side of the chain, it's not just one side. It's the entire chain that's been proven as being, finalized as proven as being true. Justified as people say this was true. It will not be susceptible to a long-range attack because you can't go back and change things if you have all the justified chain already. We can also size the issue of evidence inclusion timeouts by informally arguing that attacks will be short-lived because the violators will perceive a long-running chain without including slashing evidence as an attack. And this is what you think, like if if this whole chain is is going, and there's no evidence in the entire chain, someone's going to be like, "This is an attack. I don't like this. Let's do something that has the evidence in there." Um, yeah, I think the community would just. Yeah, I don't think there'd be an issue long term with something like this. I think that's smart. That makes sense. Now, catastrophic crash. Suppose that greater than two-thirds of the validators crash, fail at the same time. This happened in Madonna. Either are no longer connected to the network due to a network partition, computer failure, or the validators themselves are malicious. So there was a time sync bug in, I think a lot of the validators, but I know Sigma Prime, I think, had it, and that caused more than one third of the network to have an issue. We can recover from this by instituting an inactivity leak. This is why I got slashed, which slowly drains the deposit of any validator that does not vote for checkpoints until eventually its deposit sizes decrease low enough that the validators who are voting are a supermajority. So remember, the supermajority used to be two-thirds of greater than two-thirds of the network. So if you have an issue, you're going to reduce all the inactive people's stakes so that the active stake becomes two-thirds of the network again, and then you have finality once more. The simplest formula is something like in every epoch, a validator with deposit size D fails to vote, it loses D times P for zero. So P is going to be greater than zero and less than one. Though to resolve catastrophic crashes more quickly, a formula which increases the rate, yeah. So it wouldn't be, it could be 0 to 1, but it could be like 0 to 1 over a certain, like per block, like 0 to 1 ETH per block, and it would start at a lower amount and increase as the leak was happening. To be like, okay, you know what, we need to get this thing finalized again. This drained ether can be burned or returned to the validator after W days. I like this idea. Just return to them after. But then I don't like the idea because that means you get attacked. I mean, I guess it depends how, but just for inactivity leaks, I think you return it to the validator. If someone just is not active, yes, slash them, and maybe some of it can be given to incentivize, but I think some of it should be given back to the validators after the withdrawal period. Whether leaked assets should be burned or returned, as well as the exact formula, is out to the scope of this paper. So that's like, yeah, that's that. So I want to go through the economic paper next, and I'm not doing it all in one sitting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the economic review, probably maybe once a day for about 20 minutes, or every other day for half an hour, and try and get through it. It's like a 100-page paper, so it'll take me a little while, but it'll be fun. The drain, okay. The activity leak introduced the possibility of two checkpoints being finalized without any validator getting slashed. As in figure 6, with validators only losing money on only one of the two checkpoints. Assume the validators are split into two subsets, with subset VA voting on chain A, and then validators B voting on chain B. On chain A, the validators B deposits will leak, and vice versa, leading to each subset having a supermajority on its respective chain. So it's like a chain split. Allowing two conflicting checkpoints to be finalized without any validators being explicitly slashed. So this is kind of the idea where you'd have two chains and no validators from this chain A want to go to chain B, and no validators from chain B want to go to chain A, because on the opposite chains they're getting slashed. So you're kind of like, so how do you deal with the incentive mechanism? So basically, one day, these validators are going to win out, I guess, and everyone's going to keep voting. Like DApps will be issued, so there's kind of an issue there. But each subset will lose a portion of their deposit on one of the chains. If this happens, each validator would simply favor whichever finalized checkpoint it saw first. So I know Vitalik came out with a paper or a blog post saying maybe you can have a better idea where when you have issues like this, choosing which chain to go on. The idea was, I suppose, always going with a certain. That's for actual force, proposed force. That's not accidental force. But very interesting. Like if I was a validator and one chain was correct, but I was on the wrong chain, but on that chain I lost 2 ETH, and on this chain I gained an ETH, let's say. even if that chain's more correct, I'm going to want to stay on my chain. And that's why I think this whole, returning your ETH after a withdrawal period would allow me to be like, oh man, crap, like I'm on the wrong chain. Let me withdraw my validator. I lost 2 ETH. I'll get it back over after this many days, and maybe I can just start a new validator, knowing that I'm going to get my validator back after 4 months or whatever. So I don't know, or some kind of delay or some kind of that. So the exact algorithm for recovering these various attacks remains an open problem. For now, we assume validators can detect obviously malfeasant behavior. So basically, right now, we're assuming that you can detect these things, and you wouldn't do that. So this idea should really be happening. Where you got kind of a fork, but I mean, I did get an inactivity leak when I was running my chain previously, and I know it was a great testing thing for the client teams, but it really made me feel insecure with running a node because I can't really afford to lose 1 ETH even. So that's why, I mean, for right now, I think running it on Rocket Pool, I'll keep testing. I'll keep running Ubuntu, fresh Ubuntu installs, and keep going. But for me, it's a bit stressful to think, okay, if there's an issue with my client, I might lose an ETH or two. I know it's over like a year and 2 years, but even with an ETH, the idea is that the Rocket Pool will take care of that. If there is a slashing event, everyone loses together, so it probably won't be one, you'd hope. And you all gain together. And then I can have some economic security. Let's say my keys get stolen or whatever. Hopefully I've been, trading or selling or doing something with my ETH so that the foundation can continue. But yeah, inactivity leak, the checkpoint on the left can be finalized immediately. The checkpoint on the right can be finalized after some time. Once the validator deposits sufficiently deplete. Yeah, so because of this, you can justify these, but you can't finalize them until you have this period of time where you get back to greater than 2/3 of the active validator deposits being be active. Yeah, 2/3 of the validator deposits being active. So conclusions, we presented Casper, a novel proof of stake system derived from the Basel default on literature. Casper includes 2 slashing conditions are correct by construction fork choice rule inspired by 11 and dynamic validator sets. Finally, we introduce extensions to Casper, not reverting finalized checkpoints and the inactivity leak to defend against 2 common attacks. Casper remains imperfect. For example, a wholly compromised block proposal mechanism will prevent Casper from finalizing new blocks. Casper is a POS-based strict security improvement to almost any POW chain. The problem is that Casper does not wholly solve, particularly related to 51% attacks. Can still be corrected using user-activated soft forks. So, for example, if it's a 51% attack, you could still have all the users come together and be like, hey, we don't want this thing to happen. Like the DAO fork, okay, this happened. You can still soft fork. But this really gives you a lot of finality. Casper gives a lot of finality guarantees or improvements, security improvements. Future developments will undoubtedly improve Casper security and reduce the need for user-activated software. So as security gets more involved in Casper, you might be able to go to a fully, it might become, I mean, who knows, it might become its own consensus mechanism and not really have a need for proof of work chain at all. That's kind of what they're working towards. Future work. The current Casper system built upon a proof of work blockchain mechanism. We wish to convert the block proposal mechanism to proof of stake. We wish to prove accountable, safety, and plausible liveness, even when the weights of the validator set change with rewards and penalties. So that's what we have now. Like, that's what I would love. Like, that's what we pretty much, or not have now. That's what ETH 2.0 is supposed to be. But lots of I read this. Wait, I read this line, and like the little program I've done in my life is like math. This math sounds so complicated to do with low latency, and security and everything else on a blockchain. But anyways, another problem for future work is a formal specification for fork choice rule taking into account the common attacks on proof of stake. Future work papers will explain and analyze the financial incentives within Casper. I'm super excited to go that's the next paper I'm going through on here for sure. And the consequences, a particular economic problem related to such automated strategies to block attackers is providing upper bounds on the ratio between the degree of disagreement between different clients and the cost incurred by the attacker. Thank you, everyone, for these discussions. These are all the reference papers. Uh, I'm probably going to hopefully jump through some of these and read them. Not right now. But yeah, that's about it. I'm kind of tired. I'm going to just end this now. But yeah, hope that maybe helped someone go through it. I went through this because of the Eat Study Master Quiz on eStaker, Discord, all that. So I missed the quiz for last week. I was so busy. My fault completely. And I guess I'll miss out on the really, really cool POAP. But, it's just a token. I've missed out on lots of tokens before. So yeah, hope that helped someone potentially understand the paper better. Help me understand the consensus algorithm better. I've watched paper. Oh my gosh, I've watched conference talks. I think from FCC about it and stuff like that. But it's really nice to kind of read through the base paper and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, hope you all have a great day. I guess I'm done with that for tonight.